guys, and welcome back to Dark Matter Podcast. I'm Dominique.
And I'm Avalon.
And today we're going to be talking about a case that happened pretty recently, and that is the murder of Daniel Anderl. And he was the son of a New York federal judge whose family was attacked in their home. And you might have heard of this because it was in the news pretty recently. It did happen, like we said, only, I think, last month. Yeah.
So first we want to get into the family and the people who were actually affected. So Esther, Salas, and Mark Anderl met in 1992 when he was just an assistant prosecutor and she was a second-year law school intern. And according to Esther, they were inseparable ever since, and eventually they would go on to have a son named Daniel. And Mark would go on to work as a criminal defense attorney with Anderl and Oakley PC, and Esther actually became the first Latina district court judge in New Jersey in 2011. And Daniel, their son, who went by Danny, had graduated cum laude at St. Joseph High School in 2018. And then in July of 2020, so just last month, Danny had just turned 20 years old, and he was about to start his junior year at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. And he actually wanted to go on to be an attorney, just like his parents. And there was a really good chance that he would have done that, honestly, because he had made the university's dean list just that last spring semester, which is obviously not easy to do. So he was very smart and hardworking.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get into the dean's list, so it's hard to do,
Yeah, for sure. And people said that he was also just outgoing and good-natured. And aside from being a really good student, he also was an athlete, and he played golf and baseball, which obviously are very different sports. So he was just all around very talented.
Mm-hmm.
And naturally, his parents were super proud of him, of course. And the mayor of New Brunswick, even said that Mark would always talk about Daniel during baseball season. So obviously, they were always bragging about their son.
Right, and rightly so. I mean, he just seems like a really good kid and stuff like that. So now we're going to get into what actually happened. So July 19th started out like any other normal day, and it was a Sunday, so Esther and her husband Mark went to church. However, Daniel was just about to start his junior year of college, like we mentioned, and he had actually just spent the weekend celebrating his birthday with his family and friends, so he decided to stay home so he could catch up on some sleep. And later that night, Esther and Daniel were actually sitting in their basement talking, and Daniel was actually telling her, Mom, let's keep talking, I love talking to you, which just broke my heart because I can just imagine, being super close to your parents and just, having that moment where you're just talking to them and connecting them, and, I don't know, that just really touched my heart, and I got, super emotional about that. But right at that moment was when they actually heard the doorbell ring, and Daniel actually turned around to his mom, and he was like, who was that, So he went upstairs to answer the door, and his father, Mark, was actually right behind him. But when they opened the door, there was a man standing there wearing a FedEx uniform holding a package. In a video statement she released, Esther then said she heard the sound of bullets and someone screaming no. Daniel was killed, and his father, Mark, was wounded. She later learned that Daniel had protected his dad by taking bullets straight to his chest. And the gunman then turned his attention to Mark, shooting him 3 times before running away.
Right, and the suspect was later identified as a man named Roy Den Hollander, who was also an attorney. And this case just gets crazy because officials have confirmed that he's a suspect in another fatal shooting. So we'll get into it more, but this is a weird one, you guys. This is a crazy case.
Yeah, the more you get into it, I feel like there's just more details that kind of emerge. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot of attorneys too. Everybody's attorney who's involved. We'll explain, but yeah, this is a crazy one. So on July 11th, Mark, we were debating how to say the last name. I think it's Angelucci. I'm just going to call him Mark to avoid any confusion. Right. He was a 52-year-old California men's right lawyer and vice president of the National Coalition for Men.
And yes, that's a thing. If you didn't know,
literally, I read this over and I was like, come again? What? Yeah, we're going to talk about that more. But he was found dead from an apparent gunshot wounds in Cedar Pines Park, California. And surveillance footage was found that shows Roy arriving at a San Bernardino train station on July 7th, where he rented a car. And it's believed that on July 11th, when Mark was found, he drove his rental car to Mark's home, and he shot him on his doorstep, just as he did with the other family. And he quickly drove off in his car and headed to Union Station in LA, where he took a train out of California. And the next time he was seen was when he attacked Judge Esther Salas and her family at their home in New Jersey. So literally the opposite side of the country. Like he killed someone in New York, or he killed someone in California, and then I guess took a train, or did he take the train all the way there?
We don't. That's the thing, we don't know. Like the last time they had seen him, it was at Union Station. So I'm assuming that he just took a train there.
Yeah, and then all the way over to
New Jersey,
and then killed 2 more people, or killed another person over there. However, by the time the authorities found him, he was already dead, and they believe he did kill himself by shooting himself. And his body was found on Monday, July 20th, inside his rented car on a rural road in the Catskills in New York.
Yeah. So, I mean, already, like, this is, like, a cowardly way to go out. Like, he obviously couldn't face the consequences of his actions. He just decided to end his own life.
Yeah, and I think it also shows that, like, this, like, self-righteousness that he, like, I think he just, like, did what, in his mind, he was doing what's right. Like, he thought it was fine, and it's, like, he probably just found himself to be above the law, and he's like, oh, they're just not going to understand it. Like, I'm just going to kill them and then die and end it. And it's, like, it's just so annoying because I wish he could see how wrong it was what he did. You know?
Right,
but
yeah.
Obviously, he can't now.
Right, obviously, I mean, it's sad that he will never be put on trial for what he did, and that Esther Salas and her family will probably, like, never see justice for this, unfortunately.
Yeah, because there's no one to blame,
try,
really, yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna get more into Roy Dan Hollander right now. So he was 72 years old, and he described himself as an anti-feminist lawyer who defended men's rights. According to a CNN article, he had unsuccessfully tried to file lawsuits against clubs and bars who had ladies' night because he claimed that it violated the 14th Amendment. And if you don't know what the 14th Amendment is, that's totally fine. I actually had to look it up myself because there are a lot of amendments. So when I did look it up, though, I was really confused because it had nothing to do with, like, women's rights or anything like that. It actually has to do with the rights of former slaves post-Civil War. So the 14th Amendment was, like, right after the Civil War ended, and it basically just grants citizenship to all people born or naturalized in the United States, including former slaves, and guarantees all citizens equal protection of the laws. So, again, I don't know where the fuck he was going.
Like, what is that, like, protection of the law? Is that, like, is he relating that to getting into a club? Like,
I don't know, yeah.
I literally don't know why he went out of his way to do this. Like, of all of the causes in the world, like, there are some things, like, I would say that, like, in some certain cases, we were talking about earlier, women are charged, like, at lesser than men.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Like, maybe go after that, not the club, like, just, like, just shooting in the dark. You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, why was this something you cared so much about? And, like, just his whole, like, mindset was so disgusting.
I mean, like, it seems very trivial to me, but not only that, but the amendment that he tried to use to, like, defend it or, like, accuse him of violating had nothing to do with the situation at all. Like I said, it did mostly apply to, like, former slaves. The only thing that I can think of that he was, like, latching onto for this argument was the fact where it says it guarantees all citizens equal protection of the laws. But again, going to a nightclub, it's not a law,
And, like, you not being accepted into a nightclub for one night out of, like, what, the week or the month, even for ladies' night, like, I don't know how that works. They probably have it, like, once a month. Like,
or even just, like, discounted for girls.
Yeah, like, that's not a problem of protection. And what, you're 72 years old, you're going to be going to a club, like, the whole thing. I'm like, dude, why are you so mad about this? Like, and also the fact that, like, that totally discredits or, like, just, like, completely ignores the fact that, like, a lot of women get, like, sexually assaulted at clubs and, like, or they can be, like, date raped and all those things that, you know, they happen at clubs and bars. And, like, I feel like that's why they have one ladies' night. Partially just so you can go out with your friends. But I feel like part of it, too, is, like, you don't have to be scared. You know what I mean? I'm like, how do you not see that? Like, you it's, like, so annoying.
Well, that's funny, because I didn't even, like, think of that. But one thing that I thought of when he was kind of going off, like, oh, it's not fair that they get ladies' night, is the thing is that ladies' night, a lot of the times, like I said, it's not just, like, only women in the club. It's, like, women get in for, like, a discounted amount. Right. So that's actually a tactic that bars and clubs use to get more guys in there and to buy more drinks to, like, invite, like, pretty girls or whatever. So
it's business. Like, it's stupid, but it's a business. Like, I don't know why he's so mad about it. It's, like, attack capitalism then, if that's what you're so mad about. Like,
so, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, it was a very strange lawsuit for him to...
For sure.
Yeah, it was definitely a stretch. But he also filed lawsuits against the federal government, which challenged the constitutionality of the Violence Against Women Act, as well as against Columbia University for their women's studies program. So, I mean, to me, from what I'm like kind of getting from this, is that he just kind of had a thing against women. To me, it kind of just seemed like he kind of resented them and was going after anything that had the title of like women in there.
Yeah, because I mean, like, Violence Against Women Act, like, how can you be against that? Like,
Exactly.
like, you have to either, I feel like there's like, you're coming from two places. Like, you either completely are uneducated on the fact that, like, there's a lot of violence against women, and that women are more likely to be victims of domestic abuse and rape and all these things that happen to men also, but statistically happen more often to women.
Right.
Like, either you're uneducated about it, or you just literally don't care. Like, you actually hate women so much that you don't care that they're being hurt, and you just, like, think that they shouldn't have any protection.
Right.
It's like I don't know which one. I would think he was probably the latter, because I don't think he was uneducated if he was an attorney. You know? I think he just honestly didn't care.
Yeah, and he even had a website where he published pages of his anti-feminist writings, which he called cyclopedias. So kind of like encyclopedias, but just without the yin. So cyclopedias. And in his evolutionary correct encyclopedia, he said, quote, "Things begin to change when individual men start taking out those specific persons responsible for destroying their lives before committing suicide," end quote. So this is kind of like a foreshadowing of, you know, what he was about to do. I mean, that's exactly what he did. He went against people who he perceived to kind of, I don't know, like, be against him, or he
like
thought,
his
like,
competition.
Exactly, yeah. So I felt like he just was kind of just going against people who kind of had it better than him, that he resented.
And then he killed himself.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is very interesting, that quote, the quote that he included, that, like, yeah, you're right, like, it literally foretold what he ended up doing. Because, like, he just laid it out, and I wish somebody had picked up on that, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe people just thought it was, like, him rambling. Because, like, honestly, with people like this, I think a lot of times people are like, well, they're crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Obviously, they believe crazy shit, so it's like, well, they're crazy, so whatever they're saying is just, like, you know, whatever. But, like, sometimes the crazy people, like, they actually go out and do those things they're talking about.
Right, like, so, there's some truth to their statement. It's
yeah,
not just,
exactly.
like, all bullshit.
Yeah, he's not just saying it. And so, like, I wish somebody had paid a little bit more attention to that. But honestly, the people who actually read his stuff were probably people that believe, or that, like, believe the same things as him.
Right.
So they probably would have been fine with him doing that.
Right, like, part of his group, like, the national, like, what is it? Like, group
Coalition
for men, yeah.
I have to laugh.
Yeah.
You mean America? You mean the planet as it is? That's what the Coalition for Men is. Like, how does he not see that? You know what I mean? It's like when people say, like, what about white people's rights? It's like, you mean all rights?
All
like,
rights,
what do you mean?
much,
Like, oh my god, like, I just don't, I have to laugh. Like, it just makes me laugh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just, the whole thing is crazy to me. And then something else, too, that I was able to find out about his background is that apparently he had, I don't know, like, in my opinion, he just had a habit of, like, blaming a lot of people, especially women, for, like, the problems that he had in life. Like, for instance, he allegedly blamed his mom for stopping him having a girlfriend, and then he, like, blamed his ex-wife for, like, like, leaving him, you know? And it's like, dude, at this point you are 72 years old. How old do you have to be to start taking accountability and responsibility for what happened to your life? Like, absolutely, yes, I believe, like, sometimes the beginnings of our life, like, that's not up to us. Like, circumstances we are put into, sometimes we have no control out of it, but you are in control of how you react to that, and he obviously did not react to it well. Like I said, he's spent most of his life blaming mostly women for problems that happened to him, and then we'll see, too, that, you know what, women are not his only problem, too.
Yeah, exactly, because I think that's a very good point, that, like, I don't even think it was about women. At the end of the day, obviously he made it about women, but, like, I don't even feel like it was about women. Like, he was just, like a misanthropic person. He just hated people. He probably hated himself, too, and he wanted to blame other people for it, and I feel like he, like, latched on to, like, anti-feminism and, like, just women are the problem, but, like, he, like you said, we're about to describe, he hated some men, too.
Yeah.
So, like, he even, like, one of the guys he killed was a men's right activist, or I can't even say activist.
Yeah, like,
I don't
they were in the same
title.
group together. Basically.
Yeah, so, like, clearly it wasn't just about women. He was just, like, a hateful, disgusting person.
Like, he just resented them for, again, having what he didn't have.
Yeah. So, FBI investigators did believe that Roy killed a man that he considered a rival, and then went on to kill a prominent female judge before he killed himself. So, as we mentioned before, Mark I don't know how to say his last
Angelucci, yeah.
Yeah. That was like his rival, and he was also, like I just said, they were both men's rights lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's funny because like I feel like with women's rights, it's all about like uplifting other women and like bringing us together despite our differences. You know what I mean? Like just like uplifting women. But for men's right, apparently it's just about like killing other men. Like it's like
well, I mean, we don't know what the situation was like. Obviously, we're not part of the script, so we're not like we don't know what happened behind closed doors. But at least in this case, it seemed like. Again, like it wasn't specifically anger towards a woman, it was just
anyone.
Yeah,
like
anyone.
Even people with the same like mindset as him and like
exactly.
fighting for the same cause. Like he would take them out just as he would take a woman out. So it's like this man was just disgusting.
Right.
But a friend of Mark, so one of the attorneys that was killed, believes that Roy held a grudge against Mark for years because the NCFM had been arguing against Selective Service Administration draft. And according to the organization's president, Roy had been angry that they hadn't chosen him, or that he hadn't been chosen for the California lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And Roy was eventually kicked out of the group after he threatened to go to California to kick the president's ass.
Yeah, so like we said, I mean, it's not just women he obviously had a problem with. He also had a problem with other men because this is the president of his group, a president
the men's coalition or whatever. It's already men's rights activists. Even the men's rights people were like, yeah, you're a little too much. Yeah, so you went a little too far. Like, so yeah, that's a very good point that like he even hated his own group. So he just hated everybody basically.
Yeah, I think his problems has more to do with himself than obviously anyone else.
Of course. This part really gets me. So he had a previous encounter with Judge Esther Salas, as we meant, like the woman that he tried to kill, when he argued a lawsuit before her. So his clients were a mother and a daughter who claimed the draft was unconstitutional because it didn't allow women to register. So this is something that we can go back and forth about, but I'm just like so confused as to why it was two women who went, and like first of all, it's like a woman and her daughter. I'm like, you want your daughter to be drafted? Like I understand like only men are drafted, and it's like maybe it should be both men and women. Like I think there's something to be said for that. That like if we really want equality, like it's I guess it's kind of like selective feminism that like people say like, oh, you want equality, but not when it comes to serving.
Right.
So like I understand that, and I feel like it probably should be women that are drafted as well. Like I can totally understand why people feel that way, but I just don't get like where she's coming from. Like if I had a daughter, I would be like, I'm just gonna like leave it. You know what I mean? Like I just want to protect my daughter. And at the end of the day, we were talking about this earlier. She can enroll or enlist if she wants to.
Like there's nothing stopping her.
Yeah, just because she can't be drafted. Like, why do you want to be drafted so bad? We're not at war. Like, why are you tempting fate? Like, I just don't get it. It's like everybody has the right to like fight for whatever they believe in, but I just don't understand because it's like, dude, you could literally just enlist if you wanted to so badly. This isn't a Mulan situation. Okay, nobody's stopping. Like, you don't have to like fight for your honor. Like, you can actually just go and enlist.
Exactly. Exactly. Like they're putting it out as kind of like oppression, at least from their point of view. I don't know about Roy's point of view. Like, I do understand his point of view that like maybe it is unfair that men get drafted and women don't. But I don't see it from like the woman and her daughter's perspective because again, like she is able to enlist in the military if she so chooses. Like there's nothing stopping her from doing that. So I mean, I guess I kind of don't get it from that perspective, but I understand it from Royce. This is very much in line with his beliefs and what he wants.
That's like one thing that I do understand and that like I would say is like unfair against men because they're the only ones that have to sign up for the draft. Like I remember I think it was in high school when I found out about that because like my friends were like getting ready to have to sign that up because for context, in America, when you turn 18 as a male, you have to sign up for the draft. And I was like, wait, what? Like we're not at war. Like that's a thing. Like I
was confused too. I was like, oh, we still have a draft.
So they still have it, and it's only men that have to sign up for it. So it's like, like I do think women should have to sign up for the draft. Like I don't see what's wrong with that. Like in Israel and South Korea and certain places. Everyone has to serve. Actually, in South Korea,
it's only men too.
In Israel, I know it's women and men. That they serve. So that's, I guess, like more progressive. But so like they have to serve, and everybody does it, and it's like that makes more sense to me than like only men. Like I don't know. Yeah. So like I understand. While Esther, the judge, she did agree with some of his arguments.
Like we said, like he did bring up a couple good points.
It's a fair argument. Like unlike pretty much anything else he said,
Yeah,
that is a
pretty
fair
much.
argument. So she did agree with some of them, and that actually allowed the case to move forward. However, Roy withdrew from the case in June of 2019, and he handed it off to his team of lawyers at, this name got me tripped up. Okay, so Boyes, Schiller, Flexner Law Firm.
Yes.
London. What a name. And Nick Gravante, I think is how you say it.
Gravante, yeah.
Gravante. Oh, yeah. He was a managing partner at Boyes Schiller, and he said that Roy had called him suddenly last year in 2019, and he claimed that he was terminally ill, and he asked the firm to take over his case. So it was like the case was progressing, but he was ill.
Right.
And this is backed up by Roy's writings, where he revealed that he had been diagnosed with melanoma cancer in October of 2018.
Yeah.
And he had also written about Esther on his website, most likely taking issue with her being Latina and a female judge,
Right.
which I don't even understand, because now that I'm like looking at it, like she was letting his case go forward, but
Again, I think his problem was just the fact that she had like a position of authority, and that she was a female.
but she wasn't even. I was thinking she was fighting him tooth and nail with this, but
Yeah.
she was like, oh yeah, that works. And
Yeah,
then he wanted to kill her.
Again, like, I think it was just his own personal messed up, like, beliefs and perspective, because, yeah, I was surprised, too, when I first heard that he had encountered her, like, previously with the law. I had assumed that she had stopped this lawsuit or had, like, been against it, but she had actually allowed it to progress, so I would assume that he would be on her side, but...
yeah, like, it just doesn't make sense. If
Yeah.
you think about it, this was 3 women supporting him.
Mhm.
It was the mother and the daughter and the judge all supporting him.
Yeah.
Women supporting a men's rights person. Like, that never happens, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, like, they were
Or
all
if not supporting him, then at least, like,
supporting
agreeing with some of his
cause.
thoughts.
Yeah, or at least one of his causes. And they were all supporting him, and yet he took that as, like, I'm gonna kill her. Like,
Right.
were you gonna kill the mom and her daughter too? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
probably not, because they're giving me money. So it just, like, what a disgusting man. Like, it just does not make sense at all.
Yeah, which, like I said, like, his grief with her was only essentially because she was a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. And probably had maybe a little bit to do with her being Latina also. So in my mind, I feel like he just couldn't take the fact that she had done better than him, or that she was in a position of power, like, better than him. He just couldn't take it, honestly, as far as his writings revealed.
Yeah, and, like, one thing I mentioned earlier is that, like, before we were recording, is that it makes me so mad when people like him are, like, these, like, angry, like, racist white people, and they, like, have these stereotypes about, like, for example, like, Latina women, that he, like, thinks she's, like, unqualified, but then she makes it to the place of being a judge, which we all know you can't really bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
that's something that you have to work really hard for.
Right, that's a very good, like, high accomplishment.
Yeah, and she, like, proves him wrong by doing that, and then he's like, oh, well, she can't do it. Like, she's stupid, she's this and that. It's like, dude, she proved you wrong by making it here. You can't just, like, come back and say that she can't do that. It's like nothing, like, you just can't get through these people, because just like you said, like, he's just hateful, and he's just, like, looking for someone to hate on, so it's like, it just doesn't make any
there's no
sense.
changing his mind, I don't think. There was nothing
Clearly
anyone
there
could do.
wasn't.
Yeah. And what's even crazier, too, is that after Roy was found dead, authorities discovered that he had a list of targets, which included Esther Salas, Mark Angelucci, and at least 10 other people. So, to me, he had, like, a hit list. He was gonna go on a spree, and that was his mission before, I don't know, like, if his original plan was to kill himself, or if I don't know,
Maybe
but
he
it
just
seems
realized
like...
he got caught up.
Right, like, it seemed like, but that was the plan that in the beginning, because again, he did cite on his website that this is basically what he wanted to do, that he wanted to do something against people that he perceived, like, hurt him in some way, and then kill himself. But yeah, like, it's just crazy to think that there could possibly have been even more victims.
Yeah, like, at least 10 others.
Yeah.
Like, that just shows what a freaking coward he was. Like, he couldn't even kill all the people on his hit list. Like, that guy sucks. Like, I just, like, this whole thing is like, wow, that guy sucks.
Yeah, and on the list there were 3 other prominent judges, as well as 2 Manhattan oncologists. One of them was the one who had treated Roy for his melanoma cancer.
What?
So again, yeah, that's the thing. I feel like he was just so mad because of his situation, like, probably because he was dying, because he felt like the entire world was against him, you know, and I felt like he blamed the doctor for not being able to cure him, I guess.
That is so crazy. Okay,
Yeah.
I did not know that. That is so dumb.
I feel like that's
just
just...
oncologist.
I feel like that's just his
twist.
that shows how twisted his mindset was. The fact that this person was trying to help him and trying to cure him, but in his mind he was just like, no, he failed. He did not help me. He did not heal me. I'm going to die, and that's why I'm going to go after him.
just like doesn't even make sense. It's like literally blaming the oncologist for having cancer. Like,
exactly.
What? How could you be so stupid? Like, don't. That's literally like, you know, when people say don't kill the messenger. Like, he was literally gonna kill the messenger.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? That just like, I just have to laugh. Like, how could he be so stupid?
Yeah, I don't know. And luckily, you know, obviously that didn't happen. And I don't know. This is just speculation on my part. I don't know if he decided to not go through with the rest of the list because he didn't get Judge Salas, which was his original target, because her son and her husband opened the door. So I don't know. He just was scared and he knew that they were going to come after him, so he decided to end it early. But I don't know. Whatever the situation was, luckily no one else was hurt. But all those on the list have been notified, and you know, like I said, I think unfortunately he was just a ticking time bomb. Like, he obviously had a lot of deep-rooted issues towards women and just others in general, and I think that knowing that his time was up kind of just pushed him over the edge, and that's why he decided to do this.
That's very true, because I think a lot of people, when they find out they don't have a lot of time left on the earth, like if they're really far progressed with an illness, I think a lot of people will do something really cool, or they'll be like, I'm going to go here or there, or I'm going to just do this thing I've never done before. And it's very, like, out of character for them, obviously, because they just are like, well, it's now or never.
Right, yeah.
But it's just sad to see the kind of the flip side when it's, like, a demented, not normal person.
Mhm.
And so, like, the things that, like, his ambitions and things that he was waiting to do were to kill people. So he's like, all right, well, it's now or never. Like, I'm going to make this happen.
Right.
It's just, like, so sad. And also, this is a side note, but I'm, like, I feel like he went about it. I'm not judging the way he killed them in terms of, like, he should have killed more people. It's very good that he wasn't able to kill anyone else. But I'm like, how did he go California to New Jersey and he had 10 other people? I'm like, there wasn't anybody in between. Like, what was his, like,
I don't know.
That's
like,
a side note. This is just, like, a stupid, like, I just really don't like this person. But
I mean, well, that's the thing. Like, we don't know what his mindset was towards those days. So I mean, he probably wasn't even thinking clearly, or I don't know if he had like a specific plan.
That's like crazy to think though. Like, he killed someone in California and made it to New Jersey before they ever found out.
Yeah. But I guess, like, there were no witnesses because he did shoot this guy, like, in front of his house, so...
That's happened a lot, too. There's a lot of cases like that where somebody, like, answers the door and the person kills them.
Yeah, I know. Suddenly I don't want to answer the door.
Right? I'm like, somehow that's, like, I feel like that's easy to get away with, but, like, it seems so obvious. Like, you know what I mean? But a lot of people have done that.
Could be because, you know, there were no witnesses to
that does make sense, though, if nobody was around. Okay, so like we did mention before, Esther released a video statement on August 3rd, so she was just kind of like updating. And she details the attack on her family and calls for increased privacy protection for federal judges, which is completely fair. I totally agree, because like when you become a federal judge in like certain fields, you know, like along with that, you do have to think about this, that like you might be a target, you know, and there's like even things that you wouldn't think you would be a target, like the doctor, you know what I mean? Oncologist, like that doesn't seem like a dangerous field.
Right.
Yeah, but there are certain fields that you go into, even like politicians, where, you know, you're going to need extra protection. So I completely agree with her, because this was very easy for him to pull off. Or, well, he didn't kill his target, but for him to kill someone, you know, he just showed up.
For him to be able to find, like, she says basically her argument was that he was able to find out her address and where they went to church far too easily, which I agree with. Like, I mean, it's insane to think that any crazy person can go online and just, like, be able to find them, because, like we said, they do handle very sensitive material. Obviously, they deal with cases that are probably very sensitive, as well as having to make a decision that some people might not be happy with, which does paint a target on their backs. And she does say that she understands that, but she doesn't feel like her family should be in danger for that, which I 100%
because
agree.
If that's the case, if every judge's family is in danger, we're not going to have any judges.
Yeah, like obviously no one wants to do the job.
Yeah, exactly. So I completely agree with what she's saying, and yeah, that is very terrifying. That literally anyone could like I'm just thinking for myself. I think I did Google. You should all Google yourself at some point in time. I got this advice from a professor once, and like see what comes up, and if there's like anything like, you know, old tweets that could get you canceled or something, you know what I mean? Just like, it's also interesting just to see like how much information is online.
Right, yeah.
And I remember Googling myself, and I think I was able to find like my family members from that, just from Googling it, not from Facebook. But I think it's because Facebook is like...
is linked to Instagram.
Because Facebook is linked to literally everything. Like, they have our information. Like, literally, I feel like our information is like not ours anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like definitely Google yourself. You'll be scared of what you can find, because literally he was able to find her address. Like, yeah, he was an attorney, but he wasn't a freaking hacker. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that doesn't give you like access to that information. So
and I feel like that kind of information just shouldn't be out to the public anyway, no matter who you are, whether you're a judge or just any regular citizen. I think it's terrifying to think that any crazy person could just go online and find your address.
It's so scary.
Yeah.
And at the time of recording, we did want to mention that her husband, Mark Anderl, I just realized there's 2 Marks in this case.
Yeah.
Her husband, he remains hospitalized, but he's in stable condition, so he's still doing all right.
Right. And like we mentioned, from what she said, like he survived because his son Daniel was able to protect him. So I mean, like, I just can't imagine like how hard the situation must be for them. Like,
they must feel so guilty, even though it's not their fault.
Absolutely. I mean, I just imagine that this is obviously a hard situation for anyone to deal with too. Luckily, he is stable in condition. Hopefully, he does pull through. But obviously, they are dealing with a bunch of grief because their only son just died. So I feel like that's something we also have to consider. I know a lot of people. I've seen some pushback on her plea for judge protections. Like,
I don't know why.
I don't know either. Mainly because of people. I guess like their information is out more public because of like accountability reasons stuff. Which on one hand I understand, but I don't see why you need like
send a letter to their office.
Exactly.
Like, you don't need their home address.
Yeah, no, that's like private. That's totally separate.
Yeah, no, that's completely off limits. Like, where are you going to go? Like protest outside their house? I mean, sometimes people do that.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, I think that like somebody's house needs to be off limits, unless it's like I know they protested outside of, I think it was one of the people that killed Breonna Taylor, and at that point I'm like, I don't know how you found it, but I'm not mad about it.
Yeah.
But like with judges, like it shouldn't. The problem is the precedent of it. Like, it shouldn't be online. Your information should, like, at least your home address. Like that's even your like personal cell phone shouldn't be online. But especially your home address, dude. What the hell? Like, no, I don't understand any argument against that, because it's like, dude, like, most people don't understand the danger of being a judge, because most people aren't judges.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you were a judge, you would want that. You know, because, or if you had a job like that you're, put in, like, I feel like probably people who work at, like, prisons and things like that, like, I feel like there's certain jobs that, like, you're, at risk, that people, like if they get out of prison or whatever it might be.
Yeah, or, like, a family member is unsatisfied with how a family member was treated on trial, like, this job is very risky, and it does come with a lot of heavy burdens, but one of those definitely shouldn't be having to worry about either your personal safety or your family's safety, because you're concerned.
Yeah, how can you really say that? I'm like, to the people who like to counter her argument, I'd really love you, like, for you to think about telling her that her son was killed because her information is out, and you're gonna tell her, oh well, I don't think your privacy matters. Just think about it. You know what I mean? Just think about, like, that's stupid.
Also, just, like, some empathy, like, even if you don't 100% agree, that's fine, but I just, every time I went to watch, like, a news article or, like, a news clip of this video, I would just see all these, like, antagonistic comments, and I'm like, people, like, she just lost her son, like, a little bit of empathy and sympathy in the situation would be, like, great.
Yeah, because people just say anything when they're online, and, like, they're, anonymous, so they just think they can say whatever they want, so people are just, assholes.
Yeah. And one last thing we wanted to mention too, but we wanted to put this at the end because we don't want it to, like, overshadow the case. Obviously, we want to focus on Daniel and his story, but we feel like we have to mention it because, like, it's online anyway. Almost everyone.
The elephant in the room.
It is, yes, and I feel like we have to acknowledge it. But one thing we have to mention is that just a few days before her family was attacked in their home, Judge Esther Salas was assigned an ongoing lawsuit against Deutsche Bank, which, if you don't know, was involved with the whole Jeffery Epstein thing. And, like, he's obviously a convicted sex offender, and there are still a bunch of things that have yet to come out about him.
Yeah.
And, of course, this has led many people online to speculate that this was some sort of planned hit on her and her family. But, I mean, at this point, there's been nothing to suggest this, so I don't want to, like, jump to conclusions, because it is just mostly conspiracy theories. Like, is it possible? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't put anything past that, because the whole business surrounding the whole Epstein thing is just so shady.
So bad.
But yeah, whether or not there's a connection there, like, we'll leave that up for you guys to decide. But we did just want to mention, because that is information that is public and everyone's already talking about it anyway.
Yeah, because I remember when you first told me this, I was like, oh, that has to be it. Like, this guy was definitely just a martyr for the Epstein situation. Because, like, again, I wouldn't put it past them, because, like, you know, they have people killed. Like, even, like, whoever was associated with Epstein, like,
there were some very powerful people.
Yeah, so I was like, that's probably what happened. But now that, like, we read into this, it's like, it really does seem like a coincidence. Because this was a few days that she got, I mean, obviously it was probably pending for a while that she was going to take the case. But, like, even if that was the reason that he killed her, that was probably because it was a big case.
Right.
And he was, like, envious because she was a woman and he wishes that she didn't have it. So, like, I really, like, now that I've learned more about it, like, I personally don't really see the connection with Epstein.
I mean,
but, like, again, like, it could be somehow, but, like, it does seem to be a coincidence. Like, it sucks because I feel like the whole thing with the Epstein case is that, like, everything's a coincidence. Like, everything, you know what I mean? And that it's finally being uncovered. But I would say, like, just because something seems like it makes, like, it fits, like,
doesn't
don't
mean
make
it
it fit.
does,
You know what I mean? Like, sometimes there are true coincidences in the world. And, yeah, so again, like, we don't know. We're not here to defend the Epstein case. Like, I would never put it past them. But at the same time, like, it doesn't seem likely. To me, it doesn't seem that likely.
Yeah, and we just wanted to mention that too, because I feel like the reason that this has been getting so much attention from the media too is because of the Epstein connection. And, like, we just don't want that to overshadow what actually happened, because at the end of the day, a young man lost his life, a family lost their son, so I feel like that's pretty much what we wanted to focus on.
Exactly.
So, yeah,
because we can argue all day about why it happened, but, like, then you forget the victim.
Exactly,
so
and that's who we wanted to tell. Yeah, so we just wanted to tell Daniel's story and, you know, his family and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, but that is the end of this week's episode, you guys. We hope you enjoyed listening, and we will be back next Monday with a brand new episode. And to make sure you don't miss any announcements, be sure to follow us on our Instagram at DarkMatterPod or our Twitter at DarkMatter_pod. And as always, we'll have all our sources and pictures linked on our website, darkmatterpod.com.
Right, and if you're listening on Spotify, be sure to follow us, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, it would be a huge help if you left us a review. Also, be sure to subscribe and like our videos on YouTube if you enjoyed watching. And if you enjoyed listening to this episode or any of our past episodes, we'd really appreciate if you spread the word about our podcast to friends and family. All right, thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.